In this module, you'll be studying about the science of psychology. As previously stated, psychology, the ology, comes from the Greek word logos, meaning explanation. So as you well know, many words with ology, biology, sociology, anthropology, radiology, I could go on, have to do with the study of something with the goal of explaining. And thus, many or most of our sciences end in ology, just as psychology. So let's dig a little deeper. First of all, let's review. Previously, we talked about what is psychology. And throughout this course, we want to continue to go over that definition because that's going to be the foundation that helps frame and give context to everything we study throughout this course. So here it is. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. So one of the largest things we want to talk about when we are viewing psychology as a science is research. Research is the vehicle for the science of psychology. And research, interestingly enough, of course it's done in all different fields, but research courses are often offered on their own. So for example, in my graduate studies, I've taken individual courses, semester-long courses, just looking at one kind of research or one aspect of research. So what we're going to look at in this Introduction to Psychology course is kind of an overview, more of a broad overview. But if you look at this image, basically research, we gather data. That data informs, provides information, and gives us knowledge and helps us learn. And we'll talk about that a little bit further. So the two general types of research, you have basic research and applied research. And as you all read through the texts we provide and go through some of the videos and such, you'll get a better understanding for this. If you look at the two images I have here on the slide, to the left you have a man looking into, oh my gosh, not a telescope, a microscope. Gosh, the word escaped me, a microscope. Just looking at general processes. It might be that he has a slide that he's added a couple chemicals to and he wants to see how they're interacting, to just observe. That could be an example of basic research. On the right, you see a classroom. Students on computers, some working, on their own. That could be an example of applied research. So often in classrooms, we're taking what we learn and applying it to help improve learning. So for example, it could be something like, how will a dimmer lighting in the classroom, the lighting that's dimmer, help students focus? So you might try that and see what results you get. Especially if you have some students who have attention problems or issues with sensory input. Or it even could be, maybe working on computers will lead to a greater output of work than taking rote notes and memorization. So those are just a couple of ideas and a couple examples of basic versus applied research. In this image, you see kind of a silly image. Caution, people running free. Basic research, getting back to basic research, is research that answers fundamental questions about behavior. So for example, there's no particular reason to examine such things except to acquire a better knowledge of how these processes occur. Just wanting to just to learn why something happens. Just that basic why. And from that why that comes from basic research, that's where the applied research is born. So for example, applied research is research that investigates issues that have implication for everyday life and provides solutions to everyday problems. So let me get back. By going backward, if we take a basic research topic, say traffic patterns, just observing traffic patterns in a large metropolitan area, and we find higher instances of road rage between 3 and 5 p.m. Just an observation, just something that we're wondering why, to get a better knowledge of how these processes occur. So what applied research might come out of that? So there may be, for example, with applied research, you have a baseline level of, gosh, there is a lot of road rage going on here. So the city fathers or whoever is doing the research might change the condition. So might, exit some people off onto earlier ramps so that the flow of traffic goes more smoothly, for example. May station police cruisers out and about to help with the traffic. May post those signs that you drive by that says smile, buckle up, that give some positive messages. So that could be applied research. And then the data collected from that, maybe the road rage instances are reduced. Maybe they're the same. So that's where we're looking at solutions for everyday problems. So just think about some of the applied research that you read about every day if you're on Facebook and you're reading articles or listening to the evening news. Both applied research and basic research are important. And not only are they important, they are essential. They almost have, I guess you could say, an interconnected relationship. Like I said, applied research is born from basic research. So both are very important, although in our society, applied research is really what grabs the headlines. How is it going to impact and affect and improve our lives and the human condition? So when you hear about professors and scientists receiving grants from the federal government, money that they get to help them do research, so often it is for that applied research. So they're trying to use money to improve a human problem or an environmental problem, not necessarily human. Another really important thing you'll read about and hear about as you go through this module is the scientific method. You may remember this in high school and even middle school, but this is a good review and good to think about in the context of psychology specifically, which is something maybe you haven't done. There are the 6 steps of the scientific method. First of all, the purpose of your research. And then, so you come up with a purpose, and then you look at the research that's already been done. That's number 2. And then from that, given your topic, looking at the research, you create a hypothesis, which is a question or basically just your explanation for why whatever is occurring. Then you set up an experiment to test that hypothesis. Is the reason that you believe the issue's happening really the true culprit? So you do that experiment. Once you conduct the experiment, it will yield data. And that data, that information is what you analyze. And once you go through that analysis stage, then you conclude whether your hypothesis was true or not. So a hypothesis might be, for example, I'm working on my dissertation right now, and I'm looking to see why individuals who are in a professional organization, why they stay and why they leave. So my hypothesis is that individuals are more likely to stay if they establish and have good relationships early on with other members in the organization. So my analysis and my experiment, which is a survey, will look to see if that is indeed the case. Again, the scientific method is a set of assumptions, rules, and procedures scientists use to conduct research. And that's all I'm going to go into for now. Like I said, it's an overview of what you'll be reading and working on in this module. But again, I challenge you throughout the coming days and weeks to listen if you're listening to NPR or the radio or television or Facebook, and just think, oh, is that an example of applied research or basic research? And I bet you will really specifically see the applied research. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it.